So I was recently very fortunate to play the new DLC, They Shall Not Pass. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go to Stockholm and go to DICE to play the DLC with some other YouTubers and streamers, and it was a fantastic experience, and I'd like to thank everybody who was involved in doing that, and some of the great YouTubers and streamers I met whilst I was there, such as the Incredible Orb, some of the guys from the Battlefield stream team like Mr. Prolosco and Mr. Falls, and some of the regulars like Two Angry Gamers, Hadokins, and Westy, and it was just a huge event for me. It was great fun, lots of people there that I appreciated and liked, and we all got to get bungled into a room and play the DLC for a good few hours. We got thrown in there with some pretty good PCs and some hardware that we could work with, and we just went into some madness. Lots of different game modes. We tried pretty much everything in the DLC, and today I wanted to give you my impressions of how that played out. So, just as a quick disclaimer, when I'm giving you my impressions of this DLC, we're pretty much talking about an environment which 90% consisted of players which were very good at the game. So very high intensity PTFO style players, YouTubers and streamers who are very good at getting kills, focusing on objectives. Now I know that doesn't apply to everybody, but a good percentage of the time we were playing as a team and as a PTFO unit much more than I think the average game would pan out, although at least that's my impression. So perhaps things are a little bit heightened, but I just wanted you guys to know that. And that's probably evident from the amount of editing in this gameplay, because I kept getting my shit kicked in every 5 minutes, and, you know, it's quite difficult to edit all of that through. But in terms of the DLC itself, I think there are two big takeaways, and two words that I would fully use to describe They Shall Not Pass, and that is variety and identity. And I feel as though these two reasons are going to be why They Shall Not Pass and hopefully future Battlefield 1 DLCs are going to be fantastically successful. So variety, let's dive into that topic field. And They Shall Not Pass pretty much covers, I feel as though, everything. Like everything anybody could possibly want in a DLC in terms of variety, it's added that, it's there. There is something for everybody in this DLC. In terms of weaponry, we've had 4 new infantry-based weapons, an elite class, and lots of melee weapons added to the fold. And what's fantastic about each one of these is that it's not a copy and paste or an improvement over the weapons that are already in the game. They fit into the game very well, and there wasn't a standout weapon where I looked at it and I thought, yeah, that's the best thing I've ever used in my life. That's the best SMG or the best medic weapon I've ever touched. Oh my god, this is amazing. It was more a case of these weapons fit into the game already, and they do it in their very own unique and standout styles. So, for example, I'll give you a quick synopsis of the medic weapon. It's the RSC rifle. The RSC is unlike any other medic weapon in the game, because it has high damage output, high recoil, and a low magazine. You get 6 bullets per magazine, and up to about 50 meters, I'd say, you do 50 damage per shot. So effectively, you could kill 3 people in a magazine, provided they're within 50 meters range, and if you get lucky with a headshot, maybe slightly more. But it has a big kick on it, it's got some pretty good bullet deviation, and if you play it to how it wants you to play it, which is in about a medium range engagement of about 50 to 40 meters, you can come out on top a lot of the time. But at the same time, if you play it wrong and you're ridiculously close to your enemy, the slow firing and recoil dynamic of it is going to throw you off, and if you're too far away, the 6 bullet count is going to throw you off. So it had its own style, its own unique feel, and in the same sense, the guns like the Rippy Rolls, which has the first ever bipod SMG in the game, had its own style and feel, and the same applied to the Short Shot and the sniper rifle. Everything felt as though it melded into the game very nicely, but not in a way where I felt as though I was just playing the same rifle that looked a little different, in the sense that I was playing a whole new thing, a whole new rifle, a whole new concept that had its own style, its own dynamics, and I really liked that because it was something I was concerned about. In terms of modes and maps, this is where things also get fantastically interesting. There is a huge division in They Shall Not Pass as a DLC. Half of it is almost entirely infantry focused, and the other half is almost entirely vehicular focused. There are 2 maps and 1 operation which is entirely dedicated to infantry. Verdun Heights and Fort Vaux has no vehicles on it at all, and it has no behemoths either. The behemoths in these maps are the sentry kits. So, for example, if I were to lose by a certain amount of tickets, the sentry gun, the flame trooper, and the new elite class, which is the melee, will all spawn in at my base, and all of a sudden that is my new vehicle. That is my behemoth for the game. I have 3 different elite classes spawning respawning in to come in and support us to take the objective. It's really cool, and it's really grindy, and for somebody who doesn't like vehicles a lot of the time in some of these operations, because I feel as though it does kind of ruin the flow of gameplay here and there, this was a really nice addition. And you can go from a big grindy battle in Fort Vaux to a very spaced out and, you know, high terrain battle in Verdun Heights. But at the same time, if you're not really an infantryman and you love your vehicles, you can go to the other operation, which is called Beyond the Marne, which features Soissons and Rupture. Now, Soissons features the largest ever tank battle in World War I history, and this is pretty much shown by the fact that in certain game modes, you can have up to 6 tanks per team. So you can, in theory, have every single player in your team in a tank and in some kind of gunner position, which is really cool. Now, personally, I didn't really like it. I'm not really a tank guy. I'm not a very vehicular guy in terms of Battlefield as a whole, but I know there's lots of people out there who love tanks, and they're going to love that map. They're going to love that operation. And the same applies to Rupture as well. Rupture had some tanks. It had its Behemoth as well, which is the Shah 2C, or the 2C Shah, and that's great too, because Rupture, although it has its tanks, is more aeroplane based. It's more aerial warfare. In Rupture, it's a very small spaced map. There's not a lot of movement, and it's a lot of infantry flooding between objectives in a very compact manner. So if you're in an airplane, a bomber, or an infantry or anti-infantry airplane, if you can control the skies, you can control the gameplay. So those people who enjoy their infantry and those people who enjoy their tanks have this huge satisfaction on this operation and combination of maps. And those who enjoy their, you know, full out infantry gameplay and those who enjoy no vehicles whatsoever, they also are satisfied, and I really like that. So I feel as though there's something for everybody, and the new front lines mode as well, in terms of variety, just adds to the fold. It gives you another option which is a bit like Operations and a bit like Rush, but it's kind of like a weird merger between the two, and you'll probably love it. I've done another video which is available probably somewhere on screen now, and if not, on my channel, and it just talks about the intensity and wonderful firefights that you will find within this game mode. Now, the final thing that I really loved about the DLC was identity. And this is something that's really small, but I think it's something a lot of you guys will appreciate. In the new DLC, everything's new. New uniforms, new tanks, new armament, new weapons, because it's the French army, and it's a French setting and French battles. But it's a bit like, how can I describe it? It's a bit like the Close Quarters DLC, or perhaps the Vietnam DLC in Bad Company 2, or somewhere in and around those regions, because it has its own identity. You're running around with blue uniform soldiers firing entirely new versatile weapons with new battle cries, melee weapons, new, you know, rifles that you're holding, and everything feels fresh again. Everything feels as though, although it's Battlefield 1 as a base game, I have this new faction, a new fold of the game, which is almost like its own individual standalone to a degree. And I feel as though that sort of brush over of identity, even the small things like having new heavy tanks, or having, you know, some new bikes, or having new callouts as a French trooper, is really cool to have, and it adds to the overall immersion of the game, and it adds to the overall fact that you're not just playing the same armies, you're playing an entirely new faction which accomplished incredible things during World War I. And I feel as though that combination of variety and identity is what's going to make this a new and fresh and successful DLC, and I feel as though a lot of you are going to love it. Now, there are some kinks. The DLC does feel very chaotic, especially in terms of some of the grindiness of the infantry maps and some of the all-out chaos of the blowing up vehicles and the vehicular maps, and there are some issues with front lines as well as a mode in terms of how it flows, as I discussed in my video. There's also the strange issue at the moment of grenade spam, which they've added a 30-second timer to, but unfortunately that's actually made it worse rather than better, which is something that we alerted the devs whilst we were there about. And on the whole, I feel as though although there is that chaotic spell of what the fuck is going on in this DLC, a lot of people are really going to enjoy it. I feel as though you guys are going to love They Shall Not Pass, and for me it was a nice kick, it was a nice little drive. As somebody who dropped out of Battlefield because I just felt as though I was doing the same thing over and over again, that new refined level of freshness with new infantry, new variety, new modes, new maps, new uniforms, new tanks, new French people shouting French things at their enemies, it just feels fresh and new, and I feel as though you guys are going to enjoy it. So guys, that's about it for my impressions today. I know I've been like overly nice or positive about the DLC, and maybe that's weird, but for me it's just the fact that I haven't had DLC for so long for this game since it launched, and the one DLC that we got in Giant Shadow wasn't really to my taste, so having something which has been, in my opinion, a good DLC individually, even if it were something to release like a month after the game launched, but also the added factor of the fact that it's been so long since we've had DLC, is really cool for me as a YouTuber, because it means I can dive back into the game a bit more and get more enjoyment out of it, and I'm sure it'll be the same for you. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again in another video.